All right, everyone, we are back with another episode of Group Chat. I got an incredible interview with Sam Yebri, who is running for the 5th District City Council position in Los Angeles, which is exactly where our office sits. So this is a very important conversation. I think it's relevant to people living all over the world on what is the status of LA? What is the status of politics in the city and how things work? And I think he does an incredible job of explaining it and has an amazing story. But also, we have a special guest host today. Drama and honor are out. Josh Kaplan, a business partner of mine, is in here today.
What's up?
And absolutely crushed it. We talked NFTs. We talked diet sodas.
What we didn't talk about is Drama and I playing golf together because he can't wake up earlier than noon on a weekday.
Yeah. You play golf at 6 a.m., 7 a.m.?
Yeah, 7.
7 a.m. every day, and that's how you get your golf in.
Correct, because then I have to go into the office.
Yeah, and like a normal person, work. So that's interesting. I know you've invited him to play with you. Just the timings haven't worked out.
Yeah, one of these days we'll get it done.
All right, let's get into the episode.
Cash.
Ladies and gentlemen, Group Chat.
Cash.
It's $1 trillion. Hot.
All right, everyone, we have a special guest on today's episode of Group Chat. And the reason why it's special is if you listen to this podcast, we've been talking a lot lately on kind of how LA has just become a much unsafer place than it was when we were growing up. And I think, we try to make light of it, but it's a very serious situation and it's clearly impacting everyone in the city. So we have someone here, Sam Yebri, who is running for the 5th District, which is our local district, actually so happens to be the exact building where the current elected official sits below us, which, by the way, I've been in this building 12 years. I've never seen this guy once. So I don't even know if he shows up to work. So welcome to the podcast, Sam.
It's really good to be with you. And that's a good question to ask. And who's in charge right now of the city of LA, right? No one seems to know. And I think we're all suffering because of it. So we'll talk about these issues. But like you, I love the city. I grew up here and we're going to turn things around.
Yeah. And so I'd love to, before we get into kind of what's happening, what's your background? Why do you want to be in politics? It sounds like a pretty shitty job.
Yeah. I get that question from a lot of family members, a lot of friends who are making a lot of money. You're like, why would you want to do this? So
yeah,
it really starts with my family story. We moved here as refugees from Iran, my parents and I. I have that prototypical picture, my mom holding me, my dad with 2 suitcases. We came here from Iran and I went to local public schools and eventually went to Yale and caught the political bug working for folks for like Bill Bradley for president, Congressman Waxman, and went to law school trying to make a difference and representing people who are really vulnerable in Los Angeles, and like tenants and workers and individuals with disabilities. And I've literally lived the American dream. My wife and I bought a house, right? We, in the same neighborhood I was raised in. And we have 4 little kids, and I'm trying to make a difference. And then we just look around, and the city's just evolving, and it's just there's a sense of lawlessness, lack of leadership, and we don't want to leave. We're going to fight for the city. Yeah. We love it. And that's, I think, the biggest message, I think, the kind of pattern about today is it's an all-in moment for our city. Everyone, regardless of where you live and what you do, we got to get involved right now and make a difference because we're losing control of this great city.
And so, why do you think we are where we are right now? And, I know everyone wants to blame George Gascon, but I can't believe that one person had that much power in the situation, because I get that he did, relax some of the way they were prosecuting nonviolent offenders, but is that really it? Was it that?
No, it's really complicated. So we're talking about crime, right? And I often joke that criminals are just as smart as business people. They know how to adjust and evolve and they take advantage of opportunities. So what we're seeing right now is a lot of things. We're seeing a proliferation of guns. There's an explosion of guns everywhere. Not traditional ones. There's things called ghost guns. There's 3D printed guns. Really easy to manufacture.
What are ghost guns? What are ghost guns?
These are guns that are not. Yeah. So these are guns that you can acquire in pieces. They're not, and you assemble them yourself. There's no serial numbers. You can't track them. For those of you who may have guns, there's no criminal background check. There's no waiting period, and they're really hard to track. And these are a lot of the guns that we see on the streets, thousands of them flooding. So that's a big part of it. There's been the pandemic has led to people being, I think, obviously more desperate, but also realizing that they can get away with more. Right? There's new laws on the books that decriminalize certain with what were considered low-level crimes under $950, and people have taken advantage of it. And at the same time, police is really spread thin. And LAPD's the budget has been reduced in some regards, and there are fewer police officers, and a lot of folks have just left the force, and it's tough to recruit new police officers. So we're down about 9,400 police officers when we used to have 10,000 for a city of 4 million. And all those together, and we're also asking a lot of police officers these days. They're not just doing core kind of guns and gang stuff that they should be dealing with. For example, on homelessness in the city of LA, which I'm sure we'll talk about, 140,000 phone calls every single year. And who's the primary responder to those? LAPD, right? 140,000 a year in the city of LA. They also deal with film production and noise complaints and traffic stops. We gotta get them on the streets dealing only with the guns and the gangs. That's what they signed them to do, and that's what they really want to do, and they're good at.
Yeah, and I think the challenge, I think, for like someone like myself who's like a pretty liberal person and really believe that if you're in the right environment, in the right situation, that your story, right? American dream. And I've always believed that like that's how we can fix our society. And I feel a little kind of lost right now because I wanted to, because I think opportunistically the idea of not prosecuting people for like low-level crimes, it made sense to a certain extent, certain instances where it was like juvenile and some petty crime, like should that person's life be ruined? Correct. But clearly, as you said, criminals are smart. They've now exploited the situation, and I just don't even understand how you reel it back now. Is it just as simple as like increasing police presence? Is it like, do laws have to change? Because Eric Garcetti the other day was talking about like, when you're walking down the street, don't make sure you're not looking at your phone. Like, dude, fuck off. Like, that's not what we want to hear right now.
Yeah, it's crazy. And they're just like, just don't wear fancy things anymore. And neighborhoods are hiring private security guards if they can afford it, right? And those that can't are seeing guns and gangs kind of take over. I think we need real solutions, right? So to your point, which is we can't just reel it back. It's the voters of Los Angeles decided that they're going to make this big law change called Prop 47, reducing increasing what it would take for there to be a felony at $950. So the voters would have to fix that, and would have to go back on the ballot. I think a lot of us like that idea, right? Like you said, if you commit a small crime, if a little bit of drugs, or if you steal from a pharmacy or a Best Buy, your life, your family's life, your community shouldn't be destroyed because of that bad decision. And the promise was the money that we would save from incarceration, we would put into rehabilitating people, into victims, into schools. And that's why we all voted for it, I think, but there's been some unintended consequences. So that's one big piece of it is. And like you said, like, juveniles are committing these murders now just on Melrose. And these are statistics. We hear about them, right? In the Melrose area, homicides went up from 1 in 2019 to 13 in 2021. And these aren't just, these are statistics, but these are people's lives. So Jaron Bradford, 26-year-old aspiring musician, worked at Shoe Palace. We've all probably been there, these really trendy shoe stores. And he was trying to break up a fight outside the store. And a 16-year-old kid with a gun shot him dead, broad daylight on Melrose, right? Yeah. Like, that can't happen. The guns, the juvenile, and just like the sense that you can get away with whatever you want, and the lack of police in the area, all that led to that horrible tragedy. And that's just happening over and over again. And we got to stop it. And we got to be, those of us who supported these types of policies, we have to be honest with ourselves. And like, there's unintended consequences, and we got to fix it. And we can't. But we have to be honest about it and get serious people in these jobs to bring back some sanity to our city.
So like in the city right now, like you have a DA that has a certain view. He obviously doesn't get along with the sheriff's department because they're always constantly fighting publicly. And then a mayor that's basically checked out because he's about to go be an ambassador. So how does someone like you in your position like make a difference?
Yeah.
Because looking from the outside, it just looks like it's chaos.
It is chaos. And in some ways, it's the structure. So the city of LA, 4 million people is part of the county of LA with 10 million. The DA's county, 5 people who are called the supervisors control the county and that budget, $37 billion, the size of a small country. The city of LA has a massive budget too, $11 billion. And 15 people control that budget and make decisions on police and fire and sanitation, our parks and homelessness. Collectively, those 15 people, the council members, have more power than the mayor. So the mayor has has a big platform, but it's these 15 council members who have incredible power. And I'm running for one of those seats. And in my district, in the 5th Council District, which runs from Bel Air to Westwood and Century City and goes east to Melrose and Hancock Park and includes Palms, that council member makes a lot of decisions in terms of how police resources are allocated, how the unhoused population gets the mental health and the shelters that they need, and big things like LAPD and what gets built where and things like that. So that person who in this seat can make a big difference really quickly on day one. And just recently, for example, the Melrose district, that current council member allocated a bunch of discretionary money to pay for extra overtime for police officers, including police officers on horseback. He paid for license plate readers. There's sort of emergency responses that we can. It's a Band-Aid, but things like that can actually make a difference. But long term, we got to get to the root causes of why these crimes happening and why we don't have enough police officers who are able to address it. And then we got to get it right on our criminal justice reform.
And then, so like when you're out in the community so like a few years ago, I'm assuming if you were campaigning, you would have a number of different concerns that people would come up to you about. Today is when you go out and you're fundraising, you're having your kind of town halls, is all anyone cares about crime?
To be honest, it's homelessness and crime, top issues. Yeah, in normal times, people will be talking about really big issues. Taxes or small business issues or what gets built where, too much traffic, right? Or the affordability. It's really expensive to live in LA. What can we do to bring that down? Climate change, more parks. These are all really, really important issues that a council member can make a difference on. But what we've seen the last 2 months on crime, like when none of us thought this would be happening, right? Is just every little mom and pop store up and down mid-city gets robbed. Near me, there was they got creative with their smash and grabs. I guess they didn't have a sledgehammer, so they just broke their car smashed into the window in Westwood, stole a bunch of jewelry from the jewelry store. Turned out it was fake, right? And that's sort of the reality now is that the businesses have to adjust. What we see, I was walking up and down Melrose last week, and I was meeting with the owner of Cool Kicks and the owner of Sporty LA, and kind of hearing what's going on. They all have armed guards now. I mean, that's those are all very close friends, and they're not messing around. They have to, right? But that tells you if government's not going to do it, businesses have to take over, and that's a sad commentary. And on every issue, what's also happening is government will come in and say, "Look, we're fixing it." They'll come up with some idea, and they don't enforce the rules, and that has to change. We've got to hold these people accountable. We've got to hold their feet to the fire. We can't have the same old folks making the same promises and excuses to us.
So do you think if you're in there tomorrow, obviously increased police presence, but like what at the DA level? Because like he ultimately has the power to prosecute or not. From what we've heard from people that work in the sheriff's department, police department, they're telling us, we can go arrest all the people you want, but if they don't prosecute them, then there's no consequence for their actions.
Right.
So like, how do you solve for that? Because ultimately that's on him.
Right. So at the city level, there's some things we have oversight over. So we can prosecute some things and misdemeanors, right? And some of those quote unquote quality of life crimes or blighted issues, that can make a difference if we have a proactive enforcement. I think having police officers do the right work, the right core police work in the right areas can make an impact too. I'm a believer in technology, whether it's cameras, license plate readers, mobile units, decoy cameras, things like that. They can make a difference. I think that's a part of this too. In terms of the criminal justice piece, I'll be a loud voice saying, look, I think there are some unintended consequences, right? If the line that where our compassion needs to sort of be tempered with reality is violent crime, right? So if a minor commits a certain type of crime, I think that person's life shouldn't be altered permanently, right? But if you're going to take a gun and shoot someone in broad daylight on Melrose as a 16-year-old kid, you know what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
And there need to be consequences to that effect. And there's other forms of enhancements too that I hope the DA realizes are a mistake. Hate crimes are proliferating, anti-Semitism or Asian hate, Islamophobia, LGBTQ discrimination. If someone commits a violent crime with that intent in their heart and it's clear, there needs to be an enhancement for that. I'm a strong believer in that. And so there needs to be, and there's things like sex crimes, sex trafficking, all type of things that I think require a more robust consequence. And I think if enough of us raise our voice, we can really make a difference and hopefully shift the DA's policies and views on these issues.
And so, we're obviously painting a very dark picture for the city. I mean, just talking about some of these things. What are some of the things happening in the city that you believe are like positive, that would get people excited? Because so our podcast is so pro LA. We all, my brother and I grew up here. We went to USC. I've never really left like a 10-mile radius my whole life. And I think it's the greatest city in the world. I've never seen more opportunity than ever. But, I have 2 little boys. I don't like when my, wife takes them out for a walk in the night anymore. We used to walk everywhere. If I'm with them, I feel comfortable. If not, we're just it's too dark. Let's just stay home.
Yeah.
I don't want to live in that type of city, but there's still enormous amount of amazing things happening in the city. What are some great things to highlight so that it's not fucking Gotham City here?
That's right. Not yet at least. No, I grew up in the city as a 1-year-old kid and went to public school and loved the city so much so that I went to college and with a bunch of New Yorkers at Yale, they will talk about New York, right? I want to fight them right now. Hell, man, LA is the greatest city in the world, and I think we all feel like it is and it should be, but there's we're on that slope, right? That things can go from bad to worse really quickly, and so the one game changer in this part of the city, at least, is public transportation, right? The subway's coming to the west side.
Yeah.
Beverly Hills, Century City, Westwood Village, and the VA, and we're building one from the Valley to LAX. Yeah, to really make this a connected city. We have an opportunity to build housing near transit, bike lanes, more parks. The Olympics are coming, and this is what actually kind of accelerated public transportation. Is by 2028, when the Olympics are here, we're going to be this mobile, modern city finally. Right? We can get out of our cars, and we can live healthier lives. We should be able to get everywhere quickly. But we have to build this public transportation the right way. It has to be clean and safe and get people to the places they want to go to and go fast. And I think it's going to revitalize the West Side. So people think of Westwood, where I live near UCLA, is this great area. It is. But Westwood Village, for example, is a 50% commercial vacancy rate. Half of the stores are closed in Westwood Village. It's ridiculous. It used to be the best part of Los Angeles. When I grew up in Jerry's Deli and the arcade and Dee Reese, right? And up and down, but people are making that investment, right? Google just took a massive investment, took the West Side Pavilion, they bought a massive mall and are turning into their creative headquarters. We can completely change the environment near it, and let's connect our city, take advantage of that tech investment. We should steal what's happened to San Francisco, right? The Silicon Valley folks are leaving because of this quality of life issues there and how expensive it is there. Let's make Los Angeles what it could be as a Silicon kind of beach area, right? But we got to do it in a smart way. Let's compete with Miami and Austin, with these other cities. They're leading on crypto. They're stealing our Hollywood jobs. There's a lot of opportunity, but it's going to take people like you and I who love the city to talk about it from a business-friendly and public safety-minded perspective, family perspective, right? Socially liberal, but just I think a lot of common sense.
And so, when's the election, by the way?
It's June 7th. Yeah, it's a big election. Half the city councils, including mine, there's going to be a new mayor. So a lot of us should be paying attention. This is our chance to throw out the people who ran the city into the ground and bring in some new people, new blood.
And so how does someone get involved in your campaign? Because obviously, there's a lot of local listeners and a lot of people that live in the district that listen to the podcast. Where do we start? What would be helpful?
So we have a website, samforla.com. You'll read my story and read about our support we built. We're running a different type of campaign, so we're not going hat in hand to all the people who run the city and have run into the ground. So we're not taking money from any corporate interests or any lobbyists or PACs, developers, just normal people. And we've built an incredible base of support. We raised more money than anyone else ever running for city council in the history of the city. And we have broad support, all types of business owners and average folks. So we're looking for financial support. We're looking for people who are going to volunteer and knock on doors with us, host events. We're doing meet and greets every single night from Melrose to Palms to UCLA and Westwood. So would love more people to join our campaign because, and then we want smart private sector nonprofit people to help us too, because we know the government can't do this alone. We need everyone to lean in, and there's this chance for us to really make that big difference in June.
Amazing. Are you on social media?
Yeah, follow us on Instagram, on Twitter, Facebook. We have a good following. We want to continue to grow that. And if you like what you heard today, share about it and join us and follow us. And we're all in this together. We're going to get out of this mess together. And that's what it's going to take, is all of us working together.
I love it. I love your optimism. I love that you're true local.
Yeah.
And it's exciting to see more like diverse group of people trying to get into local politics. And I think the challenge has always been like politics. I'll give you an example. I ran for the neighborhood council.
Yes.
In my area we're Pan Pacific Park. So like the neighborhood literally where my office is.
Yeah. Mid-City West. Exactly. Yeah.
Mid-City West. Exactly. I went to
that's 1 year. LA, by the way, that's the Grove. That's Pan Pacific Park, Miracle Mile.
Yes.
The Museum Grove. This is the heart of LA. Yeah.
And I view myself as a community leader. I do so many things in the community. I went and ran. I won. I go to meetings for 1 year. I was so discouraged to see how much time was wasted on trivial things and not focused on actually helping the community. And so I got discouraged and I quit.
Yeah.
And, power to you for putting your hat in the race and actually giving a damn and I think it's exciting to see, and I hope you get the results you want.
Thank you.
And you're an elected official here, but and then maybe you'll be in our building and we'll get to see you.
Would love that.
We haven't seen the other guy yet.
Yeah, and just to kind of wrap this up about LA, right? What makes the city great is not just the beaches, the studios, the nice weather, right? It's like people like you and I, the families who work really hard, who are building creatively, right? There's so much grit, so much talent, creativity in the city, but the same old folks have been in office. It's oftentimes legislators, their staffers, and their family members just playing musical chairs. They don't give a darn about us as neighborhood groups and your neighborhood council. They don't care about what actually matters. And sometimes they only get pushed by the loud, angry voices on Twitter who don't really represent most of us, right? And this is our chance to make a difference and get some new people in there. And I appreciate this opportunity. I appreciate this platform, and I love your podcast, and look forward to working with you on these issues. There's a lot of work to be done, but I think we can do it. We can turn things around.
Amazing. Well, thank you for joining us. And sam4la.com. Is that FOR?
FOR. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. samforla.com. Check it out. And come meet Sam. I'm sure we'll find out when you have an event. Maybe we can host something for you guys.
Would love that. Fantastic. That'd be fantastic. Good talking to you.
Amazing. Thank you. All right. That was an incredible interview with Sam Yebri, who's running for the 5th District in Los Angeles for City Council. So excited to see, what changes he can do to the city. But, we're talking about crime here, and that was a big part of our discussion. This might be a crime. Nike bought Artifact. This is the biggest news in crypto Web3 land. I would argue it's probably the most prominent acquisition by a basically traditional company into the NFT space or crypto space. And what do you think, Josh?
I love it.
Okay.
I love it because the terms of the deal were not disclosed.
Yeah.
But we know that they've raised a ton of money.
Yeah.
So it had to be a big deal.
Yeah.
What I love is they've really been the only content creators in the Metaverse that have captured the hype culture.
Yeah.
And, they just launched that Clone X collab with Murakami. Like, they have an audience that is buying Nikes, is buying, Jordans, is buying the product.
Yeah.
And I think as there's been this mad grab of larger traditional businesses trying to understand how they participate in the metaverse, this to me is the most natural evolution, because they're being able to translate what they do well, which is this, product, whether it's sneakers, apparel, experiences, branded experiences. They can do that well with this team. I see it as an acqui-hire. Solidity, like these engineers are really tough to come by.
Yeah.
They get 10 offers a month. So for them to do this and really build a team around them to help influence what becomes Nike in the metaverse, I think it's a win.
Yeah, and I think the interesting thing is so Nike's market cap is $261 billion. If it's less than 1%, you don't have to report it.
Right. It's what is it considered to be immaterial?
Yeah, non-material
transaction.
Okay, so that's 2.6 billion is 1%. So it's definitely under 2.6 billion. I heard a rumor it was a few hundred million.
Sounds right.
I thought it would be in the billions. I thought it would be 1 to 2. But when I asked around, just people in the industry, everyone said it felt like it was a few hundred million. What I think about is when I think about Nike, which is a company I just genuinely dislike. I'm not a fan of the company at all.
And why is that?
I had a very terrible experience working with them.
Understood.
And so it's kind of, very blurred my view of them. Obviously, I grew up wearing Nikes. It was my favorite brand, and I had all these like incredible memories and attachments to it. But like from a business point, they did me wrong, so I'm kind of like off them. So I'll hold that grudge.
Okay, fair. You can hold that grudge well into the metaverse.
Yeah, in the metaverse, I'll definitely still hate Nike. And I, when I saw this transaction, I instantly kind of went back to what I've been told internally at Nike, which is all that matters is the youth. Fuck everyone else.
And you've said that before, right? That they are focused on such a small segment of the market.
Yeah.
That youth culture, the popular kids.
Yes.
That, pop culture, right? Everyone else is just influenced by that small segment that they actually care about.
Yeah. And I think they're absolutely right. When you think about specifically fashion, it's always been driven by young people. Fashion was never driven by older people. Like if you look at all the trends that are happening and all the things, it's always driven by young folks. They clearly they made a play into Roblox with their, virtual land or virtual kind of experience in Roblox. They clearly saw severe overlap in the NFT crypto space with their core customer. And for Nike to go and build this out and hire the people, first of all, nobody in Web3 is coming to Portland.
No, of course not.
Okay, zero people in Web3 are coming to Portland.
It's also the economics, right? It's like if you're in Web3, you're making more money not working at Nike than you ever will at Nike.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's such a ceiling at being a Nike executive. There's unlimited opportunity in Web3. So you can't even, because you would throw off your entire compensation plan to go hire Web3 engineers. Because there's going to be some 22-year-old kid roam around the campus making $5 million. Because that's what you have to pay them to come work for you.
Yeah, pretty much.
So they basically, like you said, it is Artifact, I would argue, is the way that people, I would say Bored Ape is on that same wavelength, is like the supreme, the Nike, if you may, of the kind of metaverse.
Sure.
And they started with footwear, if you haven't been following them. Actually, Rustin is the one.
They were pioneering the concept of forging, right?
Yeah.
So
digital goods meeting with IRL
precisely.
goods.
So the idea of forging is that you can create a digital good that will then be forged into a physical version of it. So for example, you can buy a digital sneaker from Artifact that will then, you have the ability to redeem as a physical sneaker, correct?
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, to me, it makes so much sense for Nike to do this. I think that, to your point about the economics, I don't know what this deal looks like, but I would assume that there's some sort of IP that allows them to monetize it outside of the Nike world. So for example, like if they're creating, they're going to find ways to all get rich through this process beyond their paychecks, right?
Yeah, they got rich with the exit, right? They only raised one round of funding from what I saw. They're probably got incentivized with stock. And I think, because the way Nike positioned it, with their logos, which I thought was a big. I
saw that too, and I noticed it.
So it was swoosh.
It was on the same
Converse,
plane.
Jordan, Artifact.
Yes.
So that means they are it. Because in my opinion, if I was Nike, there's two options: build out the Artifact brand.
Right.
It's still young enough.
Versus digital Nike.
Yeah. Versus shut it down tomorrow.
Sure.
Which is what typically large companies do.
Right.
Buy all the IP, the expertise, shut it down. And because Artifact means something to their community, it does not mean something to the world yet.
Not yet.
Right. Yep. So does Nike take the view that, hey, it's just another brand in our portfolio? They'll also help with their expertise to roll out because in the metaverse today, given that it's in the early days, everyone would rather have a swoosh or a Jordan Jumpman
today
than an Artifact logo, right? Like, there's a group of people that are going to say, "Oh no, I'm diehard Artifact." I mean, the company started like 6 months ago or whatever, like 2 years ago. So it's like, there's no way you can.
That's my favorite thing about the crypto community is like people that are OG.
Yeah, I talked to someone today. He was telling me about his business. And he's like, yeah, I've been in crypto since 2017. Some people call me an OG. And I was like, okay. but I think that the exciting thing is that clearly this movement has made a huge impact on big brands and they're recognizing it.
Yes.
The downfall is this world that's supposed to be decentralized and blah, blah. We're the punks. Right. We're punk rock. You just sold to the most corporate of corporate companies.
Well, that's
on
the
Earth.
irony, right?
Yeah.
It's like the whole point is that you have all these, like you've seen the diagram of Web 1, 2, and 3 and the logos. Yeah. It's like, no, the logos from 2, like Facebook is now the Meta, right? And you have Apple getting into AR and VR, and you have like, it's the same logos from 2.
Yeah, it's the same companies, different logos.
Yeah, same companies, different logos.
Yeah, so Nike just put...
Welcome to Web 3.
Yeah, Nike put the horizontal lightning bolt, and now they have Artifact, and Facebook just changed its name to Meta, and, Oculus, or whatever you want to call it.
Right, it's the meme of like, all the different, it's like Dwight Schrute in all the different costumes. It's like, this is just every Web 2.0 company masquerading as a Web 3 business.
Yeah, and I think like decentralization, the way people want it, is so far away from happening. Because if these companies, here's the biggest difference between today's generation of Fortune 100 companies, I would say specifically technology-driven ones, and the companies of yesteryear. Take the Eastman Kodaks, the Exxon Mobils, the Getty Oils, the more traditional industrial, GE. These companies are so fucking smart. They're like, no, that's real. Fuck it, buy it.
Right.
We're not messing around.
We're not fast.
We're not going to get disrupted. You know how like the GE CEO would be like, oh, the internet, like these are kids running these companies.
Right.
Like Mark Zuckerberg at the end of the day is under 40 years old and he's like, nah, this is real.
And he's connected, right?
Yeah.
Like he understands what's going on. He's having the right conversations. I mean, he had Gary Vee, in an interview. The one thing so I have a hot take on that.
Okay.
I actually think that there is a big difference. The difference is in ownership. And I think that's also the argument many people make of like what decentralized actually means, right? It's not so much the fact that you don't have conglomerates anymore. It's the idea that Web3 is allowing decentralized ownership of more than just a piece of the business, right?
Yep.
So for example, I can go and buy Nike stock. I'm an owner in Nike,
yep,
right? But I don't have influence. I don't have a say. Sure, could I, stand up during a shareholders meeting? In theory, yes. But, there's a board of directors, there's an infrastructure in place. With Web3, now as you start to see all of these new organizations and concepts pop up, you have this decentralized or democratized ownership in what actually happens with it.
Yep.
And so that to me is the biggest difference, where you'll find, I believe, that brands like Artifact will be, when you think of how people are so connected to the brands where they have a say in what happens.
Yeah.
And you think of the lifestyle brands like Vans being a perfect example, where it's like customization is really important to the youth and how you wear it. Vans, Levi's, all these brands that, really like a true lifestyle brand. That to me is where Artifact can win, is where you can have the community
The
curate
governance.
and govern what happens in their decision-making process.
Yeah,
And
I'm
that
just
to me is
curious,
really
once
interesting.
a Nike gets into that, do they continue
Maybe.
living up to that? You know, we know like Facebook entering the metaverse, like they're not, these are publicly traded companies. All they care
Right.
about is money. They don't care about culture or, you know, like they could claim all that shit,
Sure.
but they don't. At the end of the day, their responsibility is only to their shareholders. I mean, you know, credit to Nike for making the purchase. Like, I think it's smart and it'll look like a
It's
very,
very smart.
very cheap purchase. I remember like Adidas went and bought an ape. These guys bought Artifact. It's like,
I mean, it's not even a comparison.
yeah, it's like checkers and chess, right? Like Adidas,
It's
Nike's,
like buying a Model 3 and buying Tesla.
yeah, exactly. And I think it was a great move. And it'll be, now what's going to happen is it's going to force all these other brands to make a move.
Right.
But there's not that many prized properties. I would argue you can't buy all the Bored Apes,
True.
right? Like, you
could.
yeah, you just have to go, you know, you might have to spend $10 billion,
Right.
you know, to buy it. Because there's probably a bunch of people that don't want to sell it. And, you know,
Right,
you
but
could
for a
buy
price.
so many listed on OpenSea at market price and whatever. But like, so I think like here's my opinion. I think there's going to be, Artifact to me at the end of the day is a brand. It's
Yes.
just the first of its kind. So similarly, there's going to be thousands of brands like in the apparel world that are going to be created. I would argue if there are 1 million brands globally, fashion brands, let's just throw that number out.
Sure.
Maybe there is, maybe there isn't. There'll be 10 million digital brands.
Because of the barrier to entry being smaller?
Yes. So we think about fashion in subcultures and, you know, categories, right? Like in men's, there are 1,000 categories.
Sure.
There's men's contemporary, there's men's streetwear, there's men's plus size, there's men's footwear. That has to happen in digital art as well, right? So it's going to be like, if you're a golfer, you're not going to wear Artifact in the metaverse. You're going to dress like a country club
wear
douchebag. Yeah. You're not going to wear Artifact in your avatar. If you're going golfing
Yeah.
with your buddies, like you're going to wear the golf equivalent of it. Or if you're a MAGA guy, you want the MAGA digital avatar.
Well, that brings up a very... God, I can't even imagine what
Who's
that's
making
more
the
like.
MAGA hat of the metaverse?
I was going to say, that's going to exist. and
it's going to be hot.
It'll sell out.
Yeah.
Here's the thing that we don't know yet to me is today, fashion is a physical representation. Like you wear the clothes on your body, right? And so you decide how you want to look, right? So people have cultivated and created an identity with fashion today.
Yeah.
Bound by the restrictions of our reality, right? And so I think we are still unsure what the restrictions
Will be in the digital.
will be in the digital, in the metaverse, right? Because,
I want to wear a Ferrari on my head.
right, like in all seriousness, like
Yeah,
why
Ferrari
are
hat.
we simplified into an avatar that looks like our physical versions, right? And how often are we changing it? Are we, you know, every time we enter the metaverse, do we have a completely different look? Is
Yeah,
it
why not?
depending
You would
on
wear that in the
mood?
real world, right?
Yeah. So I think that's the interesting thing is like how it translates. And
that's the thing where I think there's an opportunity and there's also just complete chaos. I've spoken to a lot of people in this world. They'll give me their version of what they think is going to happen.
Sure.
It's completely different than the next person, the next person, the next
nobody
person.
knows, right?
Nobody
I mean,
knows.
think of, to your point about how there's all this like garbage out there in the NFT world, right? And there's so much fraud and scams and
Yeah.
people forget that Web 1.0 is the same thing. The .com bubble was like anyone that had .com,
Yeah.
you could raise a ton of money, you could hire a ton of people, and you could build this
And then it
transformative
disappeared.
thing, and then it disappears, right? So we're going through the same
Yeah.
cycles again, where we have new technology, where innovators and early adopters are participating. They're skeptics, and all they can do is translate their belief of what the utility is based upon what they know so far,
Yeah.
the reality we have today.
Yeah.
So we're just building Web 2.0
Yeah.
concepts in 3.0.
Yeah.
And so until we really unlock what the next version of this looks like, it's just all speculation.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing that like when people talk to me about, things like Artifact, and they talk to me about NFTs, and they talk to me about, no one right now is buying this stuff for the appreciation of the art. They're buying it 100% because they think it's going up in value. I don't believe the art appreciation or like the appreciation of the creativity. We're at that point right now. Everyone is buying. Maybe there was a week in February where that was happening. As soon as people found out you could buy something and it can go up exponentially,
And sell it for more.
then all art goes out the fucking window. Right. And which sucks because underlying with all this, there is some really creative shit happening that I think is getting lost, and unfortunately will be a part of there'll be collateral damage when this when 95% of these projects get wiped off.
And we're seeing a lot of parallels with the physical art space, right?
Yeah.
So, we were at Art Basel together.
Yeah.
And you see just what people are valuing something digitally versus physical.
Yeah.
It's almost backwards now, whereas 2 years ago, people were arguing that a JPEG could never be worth more than the physical version of it, right?
Yeah.
Because it's digital, there's no tangible value.
Yeah.
And then now it's the opposite, where you can sell someone an original painting for $1,000, or you could sell someone a digital version of it for 1 ETH, and that seems like a better deal.
Yeah.
Because there's just more liquidity in the digital market today, due to the limit of constraints, right? You can pass through NFTs so much faster. You can trade them so much faster than physical art.
Yeah. And I understand that, and I appreciate that. I just think, I think, look, just to bring it back full circle, huge acquisition, huge thing for the space, because no one better to execute it than Nike, because they have the most prized IP for this world. They have the Jordan logo. By the way, if you look
the
at
swoosh.
Yeah, and it's really Jumpman logo, right? Like at the end of the day, like if you actually look at the resale, I went to a physical resale store recently. There, maybe I saw like a couple pairs of the Nike Sakai's.
Sure, yeah. As far
it's
as
all
Nike
Jordans.
But even the Jordan 1 is the swoosh, right?
Yeah,
So
but I'm just saying, but it's literally brand Jordan. It's like, even when you look at the resale market, there are Nike shoes that are working, but it's really just Jordans and Yeezys.
Yeah.
They're it. And so I know Michael Jordan has a very unique deal with Nike. If I was him, go restructure your deal for the digital world.
Yeah, smart.
And be like, no, I'm not getting my 10%. I need 50. Because, by the way, there's nothing going to be bigger.
That might be the most valuable IP in the metaverse.
Yeah, there's nothing. Fucking Jordan logo is it. Like, what's more? There's no way anything will ever surpass the Jordan logo in our lifetime. Right? Even for these young kids who never saw Michael Jordan play, everyone is wearing Jordans all day, every day.
You're probably right. You know what? Maybe the only other IP that's valuable? Sports logos.
Sure. I just think one sports logo is not worth...
Right, in aggregate.
In aggregate,
so if you're like the MLB...
Yeah.
If you're in the MLB, you should be doing that deal to start licensing to what's digital new era.
Yeah.
And what are all of these different, like, because that's when you think of like the bulk representations like of identity, think of how many people wear sports teams as part of their identity.
Yeah.
Right, as a fan.
I agree. And I think globally in aggregate, it's bigger, but in one single entity in the metaverse, it's probably Jordan, and then it's easy. Like if Kanye were to roll it out properly, I think he would even be bigger, because I think his audience is even more in tune with this stuff.
Do you think that Yeezy has enough of a design language where it can translate? Because you don't even have a logo, really, right?
Well, here's YZY.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like, is that...
Yeah, he doesn't have the Jumpman.
Right.
Give him 2 months. I'm sure he can come up with something. It could just be him writing in pencil Yeezy, and it would be the biggest thing.
You're not wrong.
Well, yeah, I mean, either way, it's very exciting. Curious to see what Nike does with it. I want to see what the first project they do and really how do they kind of materialize it, but pretty interesting. Moving on, since we're talking about bags, obviously Artifact got a bag. The next company that we've recently become fans of, because we're working on a project and you're actually building it on Airtable, which I'd heard of the company, but I'd never actually used it. And Airtable just raised like $700-something million at $11.7 billion valuation. What the fuck is Airtable?
I think that's low.
You think it's, I mean, given what we now know about Airtable, it feels like $100 billion company.
Absolutely. Airtable's changed my life.
What is it exactly?
So in my previous life as an early stage investor in New York, call it like 2014 to 17, one of the big buzzwords was like no code, low code startups.
Okay.
And so what that means is basically companies that are building infrastructure where you can build software tools without having to have traditional coding resources.
Yep.
Right. So, a very simple consumer example would be like Squarespace, right? So you can build a website without knowing how to code. And Shopify's done a tremendous effort of making sure that you can spin up an e-commerce solution without actually having to like build infrastructure, right?
Yep.
So it was a hot topic for a while, and then it just kind of disappeared, right? At least from the conversation. And I think the reason why was because this whole concept of no code, low code felt very SMB, right? So like Squarespace, it's like, oh, okay, you grow out of it. And so this is for when you're just starting out, you want to spin something up. Maybe it's experimentation. I want to try like building a website that does X, Y, or Z. I'll just use one of these platforms. What Airtable does is it empowers the level of sophistication that you have in your software without any use of like writing actual code.
Yeah.
And creates relational data. It's a relational database that allows you to transfer data across all these different sheets and spin them up as apps.
So like, give us an example.
So let me oversimplify it, okay? When you first look at Airtable, you think, oh, this is like a fancy Microsoft Excel, right?
That's what I thought it was.
Because you have columns and you have rows and you input data. What Airtable allows you to do is basically take that information and then create if-then logic so that if I enter the information here, it then displays here. And what we're doing, just to give you a simple example of like why this is valuable. So we're testing a process where we have brands send us information and then we evaluate that information and then we work with them to solve a problem, right? With Airtable, we were able to create an intake form where a brand can log in, enter their information. It then gets populated into a database of ours. And then what we can then do is basically create tasks immediately. So if I wanted to email that brand, hey, I just received your information. Whereas prior, you would need something like a SendGrid integration or Twilio. And, you'd have to build a template of an email that then, triggers this communication right into someone's inbox. Now I can click on one button in my Airtable instance, in my base, which then generates an email based upon everything that's in those tables and then sends it to the brand immediately. And so the time for me to do this is minimized to 1% of what it would have taken if I had a team of engineers building it.
Yeah.
And that's a very simple example. What we've been able to unlock is really just making sure when you think of how people communicate with websites, it's through an interface, right? Like a web interface. What we can do is basically spin up a web interface in weeks, what would typically take months.
Yep.
And I think that's the most valuable thing about Airtable is it's allowing us to move fast and experiment before we invest all the time and effort into understanding what we even need.
And I think, so from that perspective, it's basically the engine for like the next generation of businesses, right? I think probably for an existing entity that has some legacy system, it's probably a painful process to integrate with Airtable.
People said that about Shopify.
Yeah.
Right.
But people just scrapped it and said, fuck it, I'm going to Shopify. Right? Like they didn't.
But that wasn't always the case.
Yeah.
Right. Years ago, I remember, you'd have conversations with brands about how, they needed when they're raising money, we need $1 million to go to our, Magento or Demandware instance. We have to build up our e-commerce platform.
Yeah.
And that was a normal thing to just give them money to just spend a year building this e-commerce platform. And everyone always said Shopify can't scale. It's for the kid selling t-shirts out of his dorm room.
Yeah. And now it has $1 billion businesses.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I think that if you strip away the value proposition, which is, speed, efficiency, experimentation, that is valuable at all stages of your life cycle as a business. And I really believe that what we're going to see is more of these like no-code, low-code platforms popping up that actually solve big, complex problems. I'll give you a simpler example. So our consultant who we're working with in building our Airtable instance, he has a cannabis company that the entire business is run on Airtable.
Wow.
So he built a platform so when you think of like the farmers on one side, right, the people who own the plant can log into his platform and they can submit all of the inventory that they have available. All the inventory is then displayed in their warehouse management system for their sales team, for their entire team.
Yeah.
They can then purchase any of that inventory. It transacts, integrates with Stripe, integrates with QuickBooks so they can send an invoice. And they use it as their way to track all their inventory in the warehouse. So as the, picture now all the goods come into the warehouse, they can scan it with an Airtable integration where it tells them, all right, this SKU now exists. They enter the inventory. And then it actually has a partner-facing dashboard where all of the wholesale picture, like the dispensaries and companies like Ease can actually log in and see all the available inventory and make purchases.
Yeah, wow. That's unbelievable. And consider building that from scratch in the old ways, that would have cost a fortune.
Oh, and now more than ever, engineers are so expensive,
hard to come
impossible
by.
to find.
Yeah.
And, there's just too many problems that have already been solved to go through that pain and effort as a product manager.
Yeah. Well, Airtable, cheap.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think it's an incredible business. I don't know anything about their, executive team or the people within the business, but I can tell you as a product, it's incredible.
And I think the other interesting thing is there looks like the parallels to Shopify here are interesting because it feels like from what your experience has been, what you've been telling me is like there's going to be an app ecosystem here.
Yes.
And so, and that's going to be huge.
Absolutely. People will be able to build apps on top of Airtable and create this entrepreneurial ecosystem like Shopify's App Store, right? Where you can log in and it's...
Add Klarna, add this, add that, Shapiro, whatever.
And all it is it's people that have solved problems for themselves that realize that same problem exists for others in the ecosystem.
Yeah.
Right? And so you see like Chubby's, the team at Chubby's built Loop Returns as an internal product to solve their reverse logistics problem. And so then they were able to spin it out and raise money as a separate entity.
And it's probably more valuable than Chubby's.
I don't know, but I would assume so.
Yeah.
Right? Because everyone has challenges with reverse logistics.
Yeah.
And so I think that's where we'll see a ton of value in Airtable is being able to see how people solve problems not just for themselves, but for others.
Yeah. No, absolutely. We're definitely very excited about what these guys are building over there. Pretty cool. I'll tell you who's not very excited about their future. Diet sodas. Apparently, diet sodas are slowly disappearing off shelves. Like Diet 7-Up and Diet Pepsi and Diet Coke. Which is interesting. Diet Coke seems like such a staple amongst like my brother still drinks Diet Coke.
I see him drinking it.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of people in like finance and consultants, like they have this crazy lifestyles. They're just sucking down Diet Cokes all day. But really all they're doing is rebranding from the word diet, which has a negative connotation, to zero sugar.
This to me is the jewel. This is the equivalent of people understanding that cigarettes are bad for you.
Yeah.
And the paradigm shift of it being cool to smoke a cigarette to, oh, wow, you smoke cigarettes?
Yeah.
You know how bad that is for you?
Yeah.
And then e-cigarettes coming in and going, oh no, this is just different enough.
Yeah, it's the Tesla of smoking.
Yes.
We kill you faster.
But more efficiently.
Yeah.
And so this is exactly the spin zone, I think, where it's just, they understand that diet is now the same stigma.
It's a bad word.
It's a bad word.
Yeah.
And so what they're going to do is focus on zero sugar, which really means we're pumping it with,
some chemical
aspartame and, all these other chemicals that are worse for you.
Yeah.
Objectively worse for your body.
Yeah.
And of course, they'll win.
Yeah.
I mean, look, how hot is fast food right now?
It's hotter than ever. Yeah.
Hotter than ever.
Yeah. And I think the interesting thing is like, you think about a lot of things that got rebranded, like Web3 was a rebrand.
Best rebrand in history.
Yeah. So, and you think about a lot of things in general, like if you've been around long enough and doing anything, you'll see the same things that you saw before come back as something new.
Definitely.
Like I can't think of things off the top of my head right now, but like,
okay, influencers, right?
Yeah.
Now, so TikTok, if you go to like TikTok's website, they empower creators.
Yeah. It's the
great
same thing.
rebrand.
Yeah.
Right? Influencer, dirty word.
Yeah.
Right? That's like fit tea,
Yeah.
swipe up 15% off.
Yeah.
Creators.
Yeah. That's perfect. That's a perfect spot on one. And I think that's just the world we live in. Like if you can brand what you do correctly, or whatever your product is, it's just like in the food business, the way that he tests consumers' reaction to words and then develops a product based on that is just, it's phenomenal, because it's like when you're walking down the grocery aisle, it's very interesting, like the colors, the words that are used, the words that are used in the packaging, how they present it to you. Me as like, I would say I lean, generally try to be more healthy in my purchases. A couple words shift. I know I'm buying Doritos, but I'm buying like a cleaner green bag.
So my wife, Stephanie, is very into clean eating, right?
Okay.
Healthy, clean eating. And so she's reading the ingredients on everything. And, I'll give you a perfect example. Siete, the
foods,
tortillas. Brilliant marketing.
Yeah.
Beautiful packaging, great product, terrible for you, allegedly.
Okay.
Right? 50 ingredients you've never heard of, chemicals, but that's, what it takes to have a national distribution, right? You need the preservatives and you need the shelf life. And, we have a friend that makes tortillas. That's his family business. And they have his marketing pitch to her was, we have 4 ingredients. And that is like a huge light bulb moment where you think about like, if you can't pronounce something on a package, it's probably bad for you. Right?
What if you're stupid and you don't have a big vocabulary?
Then you should definitely not eat it.
Because then you're just dumb and unhealthy.
You know what I mean? It's like, it's so funny to think of like when we were growing up and we had like the food pyramid, right? And how simple it felt like, and then they call bullshit on all of that. Why are you eating like a loaf of bread every day? Like,
carbohydrates.
It doesn't make any sense. But when you think of like the simple concept of like the fresh fruits and vegetables, like, like all of the fresh ingredients that if you can eat them and you know exactly what they are and what value they provide, like that's how you're going to be healthiest, right? So to me, the zero sugar spin zone is really just more marketing around something that is artificially protecting you from what you think is bad, right? Which is sugar. So like that's why.
But at what cost? Right?
Yeah, at what cost, right?
Yeah.
So you're shaving off one thing that you think is bad for something else. And if you walk down, Whole Foods or an Erewhon, like to your point, you're going to see every buzzword under the sun.
Yep.
And, non-GMO this and gluten-free that and, all natural that. But the reality is, it's like there's a lot of things that naturally occur that are really bad for you.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of things that are gluten-free, as an example, that are, pumped with all of these, whether it's like rice flour and almond flour that are actually like more caloric and more fattening.
Yeah.
And so, it's a really strange world, the like food and bev, when you think about just how much you can get away with from a marketing spin zone.
Yeah. And I think it happens in so many industries. And I think you want to think the consumer is getting smarter, but it doesn't appear that they are, because if vaping and zero sugar drinks are working, then it's counterintuitive to think that the consumer is getting smarter and savvier.
I don't know if the consumer is getting savvier. I think we have access to more information, but...
So let's take so in LA, if you don't live in LA, there's a very famous groceries chain called Erewhon. I would argue that Erewhon in Los Angeles is the number one brand in LA.
Yeah, I would say
it's
from
the
second it's open to the second it's closed, slammed.
But even the perception of the brand.
Yeah.
It's perceived luxury for some unnecessary, which is what luxury is.
Sure.
And so I would say that like it's the best brand in LA. Like
Erewhon might be the best brand in LA.
Yeah, when I think of brand, what is LA? I say at this moment it's Erewhon and Aloe Yoga. Like that to me.
Maybe a little Fear of God Essentials in there.
Yes, yeah, exactly. But like I think what Erewhon represents is this like, and I know from what I've heard, because I have friends who sell products to them, they're pretty strict on what's allowed to be sold in their stores. I don't know if you comb the aisles, does all the product, check out in terms of being truly organic and healthy option for you.
Yeah, I'd be curious to find out. Someone like Andres would know.
Yeah,
right? He sells chicky.
Yeah,
in Erewhon. I wonder like what the process, because
it has to be all natural ingredients. You can't be putting chemicals and selling it in Erewhon, can you?
I don't know. I assume that there's a strict regulatory process.
Yeah.
Where, but I have no idea.
I'll tell you this. When you stand outside an Erewhon, it is the best looking people you've ever seen in your life. Men, women, old, young, everyone looks great.
Yeah. I would
they got a glow to them that, the people walking out of Ralph's don't have.
Well, you're close to the rock and roll Ralph's. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's a dark scene. And even the Whole Foods or Bristol, like Whole Foods, you see a decent group of people, but like there's something, especially in the Beverly Grove, the one next to the Grove.
That's the OG, right?
Yeah. And that location is a reality show.
It should be.
Yeah.
Forget selling Sunset. You just need like
buying juice.
People of Erewhon.
Yeah, people of Erewhon. It's phenomenal. Like I used to have lunch there. It's just insane.
I actually had a business meeting with an investor that we both know. I was like, let's grab some lunch. And, his office is where the Soho House is in West Hollywood. And he goes, let's meet at Erewhon. And I was like, yeah? He's like, yeah. Like, is that weird? And I was like, no, of course. Like, we'll meet there. We'll meet at a grocery store for lunch. And it was amazing. Yeah. Like, you just sit outside. To your point, the people there just...
Yeah. I definitely think it's like one of those boxes you have to check if you're visiting from out of town.
You have to add that with the pink wall, and the, Walk of Fame, Santa Monica,
Runyon
Ferris
Canyon,
wheel, Runyon, and Erewhon.
And go have lunch. Go have a $60 lunch at Erewhon. And not have a drop of alcohol.
No, of course not. That's just for your salmon, Brussels sprouts, and asparagus.
Yeah, exactly. Interesting. By the way, they just opened one in the Valley that I heard is like...
Slammed.
The magnum opus of Erewhon.
I mean, that's like when they opened up the In-N-Out in Denver or whatever, and there was a line of 8 hours long because if you're in the Valley, you're not driving over the hill just to get groceries.
Yeah, of course. So we'll see. Curious to see how the rebrands of kind of the unhealthy foods of our generation get shoved onto Gen Z.
Is Gen Z objectively healthier?
No, I don't think so.
You think worse? I mean, they're young.
I mean, if they're in the metaverse and playing video games, zero chance they'll probably be the most unhealthiest generation.
Right. Probably less physical activity.
Yeah, because like if you're spending 10 hours between Netflix, Roblox, gaming, crypto, these are all sedentary activities.
Very sedentary.
That you're never going to be.
So that's an interesting point. What about, so the fact like your physique, right? Most young kids, why do you exercise? To attract those of the
whatever, just have sex.
To have sex.
Yeah.
That's probably the only reason. Unless you're an athlete.
Yeah.
And even if you're an athlete, maybe it's,
Objectively, young people in general don't care about their health though. Like.
True, right? You growing up ate like garbage, right?
Complete garbage. I probably would have been 300 pounds if it wasn't for playing sports 5 hours a day.
Right.
Like that was really the only reason.
Right. Anand was the same way, right?
Yeah.
Like he was just always active, eating like garbage, but always active. And so
I'll give you the exact moment where I lost some serious weight. Freshman year of college, first week in college. I went to school at USC. I lived at a place called Floor Tower. It was a dorm. It was right under a place called Cafe 84. Okay. We go to Cafe 84. I'm used to sucking down 3-4 sodas a day.
That's
okay.
Right.
Wild cherry Pepsi, Coke.
So insane.
Whatever.
Continue.
Whatever sugar drink. First day, I'm going to the I am Cafe 84 with one of my sweet mates. Load up on a soda, and he's like, "Damn, that's a lot of soda. You're drinking all that?" I was like, "Yeah, I drink it every day." He's like, "That's bad for you." I'm like, "Why?" I had no idea.
You had no idea as an 18-year-old.
18-year-old did not know why soda is bad for me. My mom would tell me it's bad for me, but I just didn't know why.
Sure.
And I'm like, it's all sugar. I'm like, so? I'm like, who cares? What do you need? I mean, what's the big deal? He goes, no, like it's bad for you. The sugar turns into fat. It's going to, and he lists me all these health reasons. He grew up healthy. Never had a soda again.
And probably just dropped 20 pounds.
Freshman year of college, everyone gains 15 pounds. I lost 10 pounds my freshman year of college. I never looked better than after my freshman year of college. And I was like, literally, because I cut out soda instantly. I ate everything else the same. It was literally no soda.
But don't you think like the kids that are gaming today versus when, we were younger and you had the Doritos and, Surge and stuff like that, are they not gaming with like Erewhon
no,
chips? And
they're doing Cheetos and a fucking Mountain Dew. They're Bang Energy. They're sucking down 3 Bang Energies and some weird flavored Kit Kat and some like collab Cheetos.
I had 1 Bang Energy once at a golf course because I was so tired. It was the only option. They had no coffee. I was up for 3 days straight.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. That's my point. It's like nothing's changing. And the problem is like with all of these new these new activities digitally that are happening, it's going to give more and more reason for not to go outside.
Yeah. So I guess
diabetes, long high blood pressure, long big pharma. I think big pharma is about you think Web3 is going to be hot? If you run a bet into the future.
Well, look, who would have thought Pfizer is like the hottest brand of 2020?
I mean, I'm long Moderna, Pfizer, Bristol Myers Squibb, you name it. And all the generic versions of all those drugs. It's sad, but true. They're not. By the way, we just learned at-home fitness doesn't work. No one at home wants to work out. Peloton usage has dropped in the last quarter. And by the way, we went into fall and winter when people generally are at home more because of the weather, and the usage has dropped. And you can't
go out and bike ride, outside. If you're in New York right now, it's too cold, so people should be using their Pelotons.
Yes.
So then how does that never change, the idea? So like in-home fitness makes sense now because you have better technology that gives you a better experience, right?
Yeah.
Versus the dumbbells of the past. But if you have no reason to be fit because you're not, because you're gaming, you're in the metaverse, like you're flexing in the metaverse, not in real life.
I would say that's not even the reason. And this is like not politically correct to say, but like we are also in a body acceptance society now. And so it's okay if you're overweight. Like it doesn't matter.
Do you think that it comes back though? So I understand like identity acceptance.
Yeah.
But the body acceptance piece, if you're unhealthy, there has to be.
But here's the thing: is
change.
if you tell someone who's big that you are unhealthy, you can't. You can't say that.
Not even if it's about health versus appearance.
Yeah, so like they would have to publicly show their health data to prove that they're healthy, right? Like I understand there are big people, like people who are just bigger by nature. I have friends like that.
Yeah.
Totally get it. But that doesn't, and they could technically be healthier than me, obviously, right? But we have to look at data to make that assumption. You can't just say, oh, I'm just a big person, I'm healthier than you, right? Like
I'm just big boned.
Yeah, which I get it. There are people that are, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And that whatever, no one's judging you for that. But I think the fact that like, look, I'll tell you, me getting bullied on TikTok saying I was fat, I fucking ate less food. Straight up.
Oh my God. I remember that.
I went home last night and I had brown rice and broccoli, bro. I would with nothing. Just because I was like, I ain't fucking around.
And you're a 41-year-old guy, not a middle schooler.
Yeah.
That's getting bullied and immediately has like a negative emotional reaction. So imagine.
Yeah, but it was needed. And because I don't weigh myself. So I had no idea until I got called fat that I was fat. So then when I went and weighed myself, I gained 5 pounds.
Did you actually change the camera angles here? Right
yes, we did.
That?
Yeah, obviously. I'm not trying to get called fat on TikTok.
These are the skinny camera angles?
Ones,
perfect. So I'm going to look nice and trim here.
But like instantly.
Jordan's giving me a shake of the head.
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah. And I think for me, like I had realized I had stopped exercising as aggressively as I used to.
Right.
It was obvious. It was because of work. We were traveling, I was drinking,
busy.
I was not working out. It was a function of all those things. But I made the conscious decision. It didn't affect me like, I'm so depressed now, I'm fat. Like, it just made me realize.
But there was a moment in time where it made you, so then couldn't you argue, back to your point about being politically correct, that was the right answer for someone to call you out on that so that it helped you, it motivated you.
If you see me on the street and I look fat, I need you to call me fat. For me. I can accept it. I remember someone last year was like, damn, bro, you're looking svelte. And I don't lift weights, so that means I'm fat.
Okay, so then what about the other side? So if somebody comes up to you in the street and says, wow, you look really good.
Then I'm like, damn right.
And so does that motivate you to continue?
Yes, of course. Then it feels like what I'm doing is, look, at the end of the day, human emotion is you want validation for whatever you do.
Sure.
Right? Like if you are doing something well, you want someone to recognize it. So like I saw a friend of mine the other day. I'm like, man, you look amazing. Did you lose weight? And he starts telling me about his diet. He starts telling me about this. And I was like, that's fucking awesome. And I was glued to hear what he was doing.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because I want to improve myself, right?
And it's tough, right? I think that's the other thing is like there's a weight loss is hard, right? And so when people do go through it, there is like a congratulations in order because you've accomplished something that's difficult.
Absolutely. You should celebrate it. It's such a big accomplishment because it's not losing weight. It's changing your lifestyle, which is a way bigger change than anything else you could do in your life. Anyways, it's a tangent on, on that. Well, final topic, which is really interesting to hear. Uber just announced post-pandemic, they had their best week ever.
To the moon, right? Stock, we got a stock pop?
So you got a stock pop on Uber and Lyft. And what I'm curious to also see is they're saying 90% back from pre-pandemic on Uber rideshare. What is that? What is that? Because like there are definitely less people going to work. So is that holiday parties? It's got to be holiday parties.
Well, let's think even more macro than that, right? Yeah. So what has changed from pandemic a year ago versus today? So when everything's shut down, people are not leaving their homes.
Yeah.
I don't know anyone today that is relegated to their primary residence 24 hours a day anymore, right? So we're at a point now where while people, especially in Los Angeles, are still wearing masks, you're still out, right? You're still... Whether you're going to the grocery store, you're going to a restaurant, or you're going to a friend's place, like you're out or work.
Yeah.
So I think because there's no shutdown, to me, Uber's unaffected. I think that's one piece of it. I think there's a bit of a stir craziness where that's why you see the housing market is booming, furniture market is booming. People they're getting sick of being still. So it makes sense that more people are just spending time outside of their homes, even if they're doing it, safely. I also think that Uber is in a position where more people have realized in not driving that they're actually interested in maybe not driving as much in the future. And the same thing that Zoom was able to capitalize on, this meeting could have been, digital.
Yeah.
I think Uber is capitalizing on, why did I need to drive every day to go and do something? I mean, you rarely drive, right?
Yeah.
You're the prime example of this.
Yeah.
Uber's just
But
more
I
convenient.
started driving again because the cost of Uber became so expensive. It was costing me $35 to come here every day, and then $30 on the way home.
So Uber
I might spend
is
$60 a day.
astronomically expensive compared to what it was 2 years ago. Is the 90% return based on volume or revenue?
I don't know. That's a good question. I don't think it clarifies that.
Because that would make sense if it were revenue, because it is so much more expensive today to purchase an Uber than 2 years ago.
Yeah, that is a good point. I mean, it just says 90% in terms of overall gross bookings. So is that revenue or is that
bookings.
total rides?
Probably revenue.
That makes sense. You jack up the price by double,
Yeah,
half the
there you
riders.
go.
Yeah, inflation.
I mean, Uber, I cannot even believe how expensive Uber is in Los Angeles today.
I recently used it, and it was actually cheap. I had to go to Vernon to our warehouse,
That's
and it
surprising.
randomly was only $20 to get there, which is a pretty far ride.
Yeah, it's a very far ride.
Yeah,
What, 45 minutes to an hour?
40 minutes to the time of day I went. It was only $20.
Yeah, that I haven't seen that in years.
I was at LAX coming back from Miami, and I flew on American. So when I got back to LAX, I was just so sick of like waiting. I could taken the shuttle to the UberX area.
Right. But you do the Uber Black.
I do the Uber Black. The price was the same.
Oh, wow.
It was $108 on Uber Black. It was $100 on UberX.
I mean, that's insane. By the way, that I forgot when we had our wedding a few months ago, I completely forgot that people who don't fly to Los Angeles often didn't know what LAX is.
Yeah, like how the Uber process
and how the
works.
Uber works.
Yeah.
For someone that has never done this before, it's the biggest nightmare.
I didn't say hi to them because I was just a rush to go home. I saw two friends of mine landed in Miami. I was just like, didn't want to engage.
on our past trip.
On the past trip. And I saw them like kind of from a distance. These are born and bred LA, probably fly 20 times a year. They were like struggling to figure out how to get fucking an Uber.
It's not easy.
No. Yeah. So interesting to see that their overall gross bookings. And I do believe this particular week and last week and this week is holiday parties. I know Uber is a big holiday party business.
So the other thing that people don't typically talk about with Uber is the corporate side of the business, right? Uber business. So like for holiday parties, there's a
subsidize.
Exactly. So a business will purchase X amount of rides and then distribute it to all the employees, and then they just link through. It's very easy.
Yeah.
So like that to me makes a lot of sense, where you're probably seeing a jump in those that didn't exist a year ago because no one was gathering as an organization.
Yeah.
I mean, holiday parties for sure. I just think, to me, Uber's talking back on brand. I'm having a really hard time with the Uber brand versus where it used to be, innovative technology. Maybe it's just because the product hasn't changed in a while, and not to say that it needs to.
Yeah.
But, they're really only investing in eats in my consumer experience, right?
Yeah.
That's really the only thing that you see is
evolving,
has any attention to it.
Yeah.
And at least in LA, the Uber drivers to me are the worst drivers. Like,
yeah, it's not an easy sell.
So I'm curious if there's any way, like, what does Uber look like in the metaverse coming full circle?
I mean, I hope I'm not calling Uber in the metaverse.
I don't know. I mean, maybe there's, it'd be interesting to ponder the businesses that rely on something that's physical, like transportation, right? Like, what does an airline look like in the metaverse?
Here's my belief also, which I think is throwing off a lot of young people. Not everything has to be in the fucking metaverse.
Sure.
Like, fuck you in the metaverse.
Meaning you still have to physically go places.
Yeah, like it's
in your lifetime.
Exactly. And I think, like, someone asked me, what are you doing about Web3? I said, absolutely fucking nothing. Like, I don't want, that's not,
we make clothes.
We make clothes. And there's an enormous opportunity in making clothes. There's trillions of dollars a year still bought being clothes. And even if you told me clothes purchases were going down over the next decade, okay, it's going down 10 fucking %.
Right.
My argument would probably be
from a $2 trillion a year business, 10%
it goes 1.8 trillion. So I think, like, and I don't believe that's even the case. I think it's increasing with population growth and consumer, fickleness. So, like, I just believe that, like, you can't there are ways to participate in Web3. My participation is getting scammed from NFTs and DeFi protocols and getting, buying crypto every once in a while. That's it. That is my participation. I don't need to build. Everyone's like, what are you doing about blockchain in your business? Fucking nothing. Right. I don't need to. Like, you do that. Leave me the fuck alone.
I mean, my personal relationship, I've been investing in cryptocurrencies since 2012.
Let me give you Josh Kaplan's world famous, his version of the Gordon Gekko, greed is good.
Yes.
Yours is buy high, sell low. Honestly, you should post on our Discord when you're buying something so we can all get out.
Yeah, do the opposite of it. You will make so much money.
On that note, another great episode of Group Chat. Thanks for guest hosting, Josh. We do have a shout out, and it's actually a very serious shout out. So Victoria, who's a podcast listener, wanted to shout out our dear friend Kevion and Alana. They recently had a brand new baby and are having some complications with the baby, and they're asking everyone to send their prayers and thoughts. And Kevion and Alana are just like amazing human beings, have this beautiful family. They live out in Orange County. They're friends of ours, and their baby's in NICU right now, and it's just an intensive care unit for infants. And so we just sending our prayers, sending lots of love to you guys, and I can't wait to meet the little one. We've done events with Kevion. His whole family has come. We've done Run Club down in Huntington Beach. So known him forever. So wishing you guys all the best.
I've got one shout out as well.
Okay.
We've got a shout out from Caitlin Gray. She said, "Hi, want to give a shout out to my boyfriend Connor, aka Mr. Plum. Tell him hi and then I miss him. Also thank him for showing me to the pod. Smiley face."
Awesome. Big shout out there.
Thanks for having me.
Why'd you miss him? Where is he? Where are you, Connor?
In the metaverse.
Yeah, he's like, oh, my boyfriend's out in the metaverse. Can't find him. Oh, my God. All right. Well, great episode. And we'll see you back here on Thursday. Bye-bye.